Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Let's Interview the Finalist for the Mass Effect Season 2 Tabletop campaign. Right now, today, we are joined with Kiwi.
Hi.
Welcome, welcome. Those of you who might recognize Kiwi from somewhere, Kiwi was a guest player in the recent Pokemon Tabletop campaign. And joining us once again is Eric. Good to see you again, Eric.
Hey.
And just like always, we're just going to dive right in. So, Eric, it's your show. Go right ahead.
Cool. Go right into the interview questions. What is it about tabletop gaming that kind of like makes you kind of passionate about getting into?
Mostly the RP part because I really like RPing with my friends. I think it all started when I started playing World of Warcraft back in the day.
Mhm.
Uh and well, it's also making friends in the process. Yeah, it's a big thing for me to actually be able to meet people because I am a very nervous person or very shy person in real life. So uh, through online tabletop campaign and even just being pulled into one by some of my friends, meeting new people is amazing to me.
What made you kind of like really kind of make you kind of like passionate about the Mass Effect lore?
I always liked aliens. It's kind of one of my things. I have so many shirts with tiny green people on them, and my backpack also is one of those. So I think it was mostly because it was one of the first games, if we don't count the Star Wars ones, uh, was one of the first really big outer space with aliens game that was a role playing game that came out, and I had absolutely loved it. I saw the trailer and I picked it up the day it came out, the day the first game came out, and I've had the books, I've had read the comics, I've all the games, all the DLCs. I guess I'm someone that can stick to a fandom or stick to something that I like and only speak of that for months and only do that for months. I That was Mass Effect for me. It
Hmm.
still is somehow.
Oh, very very nice. Okay. What do you believe makes you a great player to play with?
Well, I like to think that I have unique ideas as to character RPing or characters that would not necessarily be the norm, I guess. Uh might take a little longer to answer because English is not my first language, but I still absolutely love RPing, and it's I write a lot, so I suppose that the creative thinking is there also when I RP.
Very very good. Awesome. What would you consider would be like the your biggest challenge or like area of growth as a player that you would have?
I tend to have my characters be more have more parts of me than actually being their own character, which is something that I've noticed with Charlie in the beginning, though he has moved beyond that. And I really hope that I can do that with Vito as well. That I can have this character be his own character, not just a projection of parts of me.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say Vito is totally different from Charlie, very different. So I'm really excited to see what he's like in roleplay.
Okay, very, very good. Okay. Um, so now, what kind of goals would you think your character would have? Like, what kind of goals does your character have?
His main goal, I think, is to live up to the name that was given to him.
Mhm.
He wants to be remembered by that name, uh, adventuring and even just with his archaeological finds. He wants to be well known.
What would you consider like kind of the goals that you want for your character? Would you feel like would be something similar to that? You want that same goals, or what would you say you want him to kind of experience throughout this whole campaign?
I want his principles and his I want his values to be rattled. I want him to doubt himself. I want him to I really want him to see parts of him that he probably has never seen before. It's gonna be fun to play that.
Oh yeah, awesome, very cool, very good. I like that. Where I can like trying to explore different, kind of like push your character to the limits, sort of thing. All right, so the scene that I have for your character Kiwi, there is basically we're invited to some sort of you were told that it's some sort of political fundraiser slash is like some sort of art auction going on. Basically, first you walk in kind of a room of several select groups of people, seeing different pieces of sculptures surrounded the room, some big, some small, different art pieces. Many of them have like strong historical significance. You kind of enter the room, kind of checking out each art piece that's going to eventually be put into the auction bid. As you're standing next to one of the statues, you are approached by a Turian female in a nice-looking dress, formal wear. I don't see you too often in these kind of situations. Your name?
Oh, Vito Pix. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Likewise. Profession?
Archaeologist.
Ah.
I was simply admiring these.
Yes, I could imagine you could probably say I'm probably definitely go into a lot more detail than I know of. It's like I'm looking at some of these art pieces. This one in particular, I've noticed that a lot of the human work seems to not kind of hold off. Apparently, a lot of these pieces used to belong to a Mr. Donovan Hawk. Surprised that they held off during the Reaper War, but I imagine his place was vacant, so Reapers didn't really have a reason to come here. The picture, the statue that she waves to is the statue of the Michelangelo David. Definitely had seen somewhere, especially from if you're familiar with the DLC. It's definitely it's definitely still warm, but still at least looks the same. Are you familiar with this piece?
My travels have taken me to Hurt a few times. However, I am not that familiar with the Roman and Greek pieces. My travels have mostly taken me to the jungles.
Jungles.
Old temples, and for example, during the Reaper War, one of those Aztec, Mixtec temples have been discovered due to mostly the disappearance of the rainforest there. And we have been able to find many interesting pieces. Some jade-encrusted skulls, for example.
Quite interesting. I imagine that could probably do pretty well in an auction here. I don't know what you had thought of a piece like that, where it would belong.
I can't believe I can say this. I believe it belongs in a museum.
Yes.
That's very fair. He's definitely trying to pass on that type of knowledge. We kind of keep moving along through the art gallery. The next sculpture you pass by is this giant, bulking, behemoth-looking monster of a thing with huge horns. This one, wouldn't want to be trapped in an alley with this thing. Can't imagine.
Obviously not.
Yeah.
What origin is this exactly?
Honestly, I have no idea. Never seen this. Possibly a original piece. Don't know what they're referencing though. You can see like this definitely looks like something very monstrous, like with the jagged teeth, very bulking muscles. Yeah, definitely not something that you normally have not seen. And then continuing on, you hear a bit of commotion going on. One of the auctioneers seems to be bad mouthing one of another piece. You approach it closer and you notice that the piece in particular is that of it's a huge humanoid head in this practically near the center of it. Uh, Coming off as a kind of a greenish coloring to it, with the jagged-looking crowns coming adorning its head. The person who is bad-mouthing it comes to be coming from a Volus just kind of not seeming quite too pleased with this piece. I can't believe that something like this would be up for an auction. Imagine what humans have to do with bringing their futures such a large thing. Obviously, they're compensating for something.
Vito will step in. Just. Would this not happen to be the Statue of Liberty? I never had the occasion to actually see it myself.
Is this what it is?
This
Don't know.
piece. This was a symbol of freedom for the people of Earth. Or, at the very least, the ones that lived in America.
Obviously, they didn't take care of it that well.
Oh. Sometimes time can be cruel to some things, but I do believe it is our jobs to keep it going. To have our people remember its significance.
Sepia kind of steps in. Quite right. It is just kind of a thing that we tend to do. Time can be very cruel, but it's just shows how each species kind of hell is able to become resilient over the time and period of time. Still, I would imagine that the fact that it lasted as long as it did, that they've been able to maintain itself, especially from being so far away from its native planet, and to be able, as much as huge as it was before, imagine it's quite amazing.
It is.
And then the Volus just kind of gets all huffy, the convention just kind of exit off. Very, very good.
Historically speaking, I don't believe that it should be there, however.
Another piece you think it would go to a museum as well?
Definitely. Its significance is very important to humans. It was the first thing that American immigrants would see when they found America. I read too much sometimes.
No.
I suppose it does make me kind of sensible to these things, I suppose.
No. Imagine we could probably talk to some of the art auctioneers to talk about that, whether or not it's something to stay on there or not. And the next piece you go to is a Tyrian artwork. Very simplistic, though noticing that seeing the high bid on that seems a bit odd for it. Yes, I can tell from, at least with my experience, we don't really see many Turian artists from our race. Probably the reason why this one is as valued as is. I don't know how much contact you've had with our people, with the Turians.
Oh, I have had enough contact. Yes.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Well, I work together with my husband in a Pelivan museum. The Pelivan Museum of Art and History.
Oh, congrats. What kind of work does he do?
He's the curator, actually.
Curious? Oh, wow. It is always nice to see Turians that kind of go beyond their military role. You see so many Turians that kind of keep themselves in that military block of mind. So it's always refreshing to see different mindsets.
It was definitely refreshing to meet him.
That sounds like a different story to delve into. Oh, it looks like they're starting to start waving in the people to start the auction process. Curious. I didn't know if you wanted to check out any of the final pieces.
He would probably look for any old Salarian archaeological pieces that he might recognize, since he worked a lot on Cirkish.
Sure. Yeah. It's a bit harder to find, but you do find there's definitely a piece of a Salarian artwork. This one is a lot of it seems to kind of go more kind of like mechanical-esque, but it's still kind of like kind of a mechanical structure. Probably something from a construct from back their earlier years.
Probably looks like an earlier look at an exoskeleton. Much like the Alpha or Alphas Atlas. the Atlas war machines, even though this one mostly looks like to have been used in laboring work, so it can help people, say, reach more places. And it looks to be quite old, probably from an old Sundering city that Vito seems to be sure he recognized. Vito's pretty sure he has worked on the archaeological digs that actually found this piece. He has kind of a cheeky smile.
Familiar with this piece as well?
Oh yes.
Definitely looks like it's definitely seen many years.
This was an interesting find. Because for the longest time we have believed the city we found it in was a myth. Some places that we believed were simply stories. Much like the human Iliad. Places and heroes that we didn't really believe existed. But turns out it had been sunken. We like to believe in some way that, or at least I do. I don't know about the others on the project. The leader of the project seemed to be a little less than interested. Anything that isn't related to Reaper Tech these days isn't as interesting to some people, but either it had been sunken by the rays of the sea level, or it actually predates the time we actually left the water, back when we were still amphibians.
It's definitely kind of sitting there, kind of admiring it, and then with that you hear a kind of a flashing of the lights, kind of letting again the final warning for the people to let them know to start finally funneling in. Looks like we'll have to. It was nice talking to you. It looks like we have to finish our discussion here and kind of get into the room then. Shall we?
Of course. In the first place, I do believe that I'm a valuable asset to this team, since I have the knowledge that one could search. I know of old techniques, and I could definitely see myself lead a team. There's, of course, my family, but I mean, who's to say no to a little adventure? I am competent in the art of battle as well. You never know what you might find on a dig, especially since the area of work I'm in can be quite cutthroat. Rivalries. I would like for you all to consider my application.